All right, so get this. We're going on a deep dive that might just make you look at your spare change a little differently.
Ooh, you've got my attention.
We're talking about pennies.
Pennies.
Yeah, but not just any pennies.
Okay, I'm listening.
We're talking about those wheat pennies.
Mhm.
The ones that could be worth, get this, hundreds.
Hundreds.
Even thousands of dollars.
Now you're talking my language. Thousands of dollars for pennies. You're going to have to tell me more.
I know, right? It's crazy. You've probably heard about them, those wheat pennies.
Yeah, vaguely.
But there's a whole world behind them. A world of, well, history, rarity, and even, some happy little accidents that make some of these coins super valuable.
Accidents. Like what?
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah?
We're using an article from coincollecting.com called Top 10 Most Valuable Rare Wheat Pennies Worth Money.
Sounds promising.
Get ready for some surprising discoveries because we're about to uncover what makes these pennies so special.
You know, it's funny. We handle these little pieces of history all the time without even realizing how much they could be worth.
Right.
Like, just imagine a single penny sitting in your drawer or at the bottom of your coin jar.
Yeah.
Could be a collector's dream.
Okay, let's break this down. For those who might not know, what exactly is a wheat penny?
So a wheat penny, they were minted from 1909 to 1958.
Okay.
And they have, the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln on the head side.
Right, the classic Lincoln profile.
Flip it over.
Yeah.
And on the tails side, you'll find 2 stalks of wheat. That's where the name comes from.
Makes sense.
Wheat penny?
But why are some wheat pennies worth more than others? They're all pretty old by now, right?
Well, that's where rarity and condition come in.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So some years had lower mintage numbers.
What does that mean?
That means fewer pennies from those years were actually produced.
Ah, so fewer pennies means they're more rare.
Exactly. Which makes them more desirable, to collectors.
I see.
And then there's the condition of the penny itself.
Right.
A pristine, uncirculated penny, especially one that's still got its original reddish copper hue. That's going to be worth way more than one that's been, worn down over time.
So basically, those shiny reddish pennies are the ones to keep an eye out for.
You got it.
This is starting to sound like a real treasure hunt.
Oh, it definitely is.
And I think we should take a look at that top 10 list from coincollecting.com.
Okay.
It's a great way to really understand what makes these wheat pennies so valuable.
Sounds good.
All right, starting with number 1, we have the 1931 Band S wheat penny. What's the deal with this one?
Ah, the 1931 dents. That one's a key date in the series.
How so?
Well, because it was the last one minted in San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yeah, for several years.
Oh, interesting.
So it's surprisingly rare, even though a relatively large number were minted originally.
I see.
And in 2021, a really well-preserved one, graded MS66 plus RD, which basically means it's an amazing condition, sold for...
For how much?
Get this. $18,600.
Wait, $18,600 for a penny?
1 penny.
Wow, that's a lot more than I expected.
Right.
All right, what about number 2 on this list?
Number 2 is the 1917 double die.
I've heard of double dies,
Yeah.
but I don't really know what they are.
They're fascinating, really.
Oh.
It's amazing how such a tiny mistake during the minting process can make such a valuable error.
Okay, so can you explain what a double die is
Yeah.
and why collectors love them so much?
A double die happens when the die that's used to strike the coin, it slips just slightly during the minting process.
Okay.
And it creates a sort of ghost image on some of the design element.
A ghost image.
Yeah. Imagine looking at the date on a penny and you see like a faint outline of the numbers.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the double die effect.
So it's like a printing mistake, but on a coin.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool.
With the 1917 double die, the doubling is most noticeable on the date and the words, "In God we trust." And even a slight doubling can make a coin way more valuable. Actually, the best-known specimen of the 1917 double die, it was graded MS67 plus RD,
Okay.
sold for a whopping $180,000 in 2019.
$180,000. You're kidding me.
Nope.
That's insane. Okay, all right, I'm hooked.
Okay.
What's the next treasure on the list?
Number 3 is a classic, the 1909 S wheat penny.
The 1909S. Is that another minting error?
Not an error, this one.
Yep.
It's all about the mintage numbers and that S mint mark.
Is.
That means it was minted in San Francisco. It had a pretty low mintage, only about 1,825,000.
Wow. So it's really rare.
Yeah, which is why it's such a hot commodity among collectors. Back in 2004, an MS67 plus RD example sold for
Wait,
$69,000.
San Francisco seems to be the place to be for valuable pennies. And speaking of the S mint mark, number 4 is the 1909 S over horizontal S. What's with the double S?
Okay, so this one's a bit unusual.
Unusual how?
It's called a repunched mint mark, or RPM.
RPM.
Back then, they used to hand punch the mint marks into the dies. And with this one, the first S was punched in the wrong way,
Yeah.
so they corrected it with a second S, which ended up overlapping the first.
Ah, so a tiny mistake makes it valuable.
Exactly. In July of 2022, one of these pennies, in MS67 RD condition, sold for $32,900.
My mind is officially blown.
Yeah.
And we're only 4 pennies in. What's next?
Number 5 is an interesting one, the 1914D wheat penny. It's actually the most valuable non-error penny.
Really? What about, like, the 1922 D no D, the one with the missing mint mark? Shouldn't that be more valuable?
That's a good question. The 1922 D no D is incredibly rare, definitely.
Yeah.
But the 1914D, it has a really low mintage.
Oh, whoa.
Only 1,193,000.
Wow.
So uncirculated ones are super hard to come by. A pristine MS66 Plus RD example, it sold for a mind-blowing $158,625 back in 2018.
That's a lot for a penny that doesn't even have an error. I'm guessing that means there are a lot of fakes out there.
You are absolutely right, because the 1914D is so valuable, there are tons of fakes floating around.
So buyer beware, right?
Exactly. If you think you found one, always, always get it authenticated by a reputable expert.
Noted. Okay, so speaking of missing mint marks, let's talk about that number 6 on the list.
Yeah.
The 1922 D, no D. How does a mint mark just disappear?
Well, picture this. The Denver Mint.
The D mint mark.
Right. They were the only ones making pennies back then, and they were under a lot of pressure to keep up with the country's demand.
Makes sense.
And in all that chaos, a bunch of pennies just, well, slipped through the cracks.
Without a mint mark?
Yep, no D.
And now they're worth a fortune.
You got it. Back in 2008, an MS64 graded 1922 D no D sold for a cool $92,000.
It's wild how these tiny errors can make such a difference in value.
It really is.
Okay, on to number 7. What's next?
Next up is the 1909 SVDB wheat penny.
The VDB.
It's named after the designer, Victor David Brenner. His initials are right there on the coin.
Ah, I see. So we've got a famous designer, low mintage, and the San Francisco mint mark. This has got to be worth a lot.
You bet. An MS67 RD example sold for a jaw-dropping $168,000 in April 2022. But because it's so valuable, you guessed it,
Fakes.
counterfeiters are all over it. Authentication is key with this one.
All right, I'm taking notes. What's number 8 on our list of valuable pennies?
Number 8 is the 1955 double die wheat penny. This one's really cool because the doubling is so obvious.
Really?
You can usually see it without a magnifying glass.
That's impressive. How rare is this one?
It's estimated that only about 24,000 of them were ever released into circulation.
Wow. And how much are we talking?
In 2018, an MS65 plus RD 1955 double die sold for $114,000.
All right, I got to start checking my coin jar more often. What's next?
Okay, now we have a real rarity. The 1944 steel cent.
A steel penny. That's different.
It is, and it has a cool story behind it. Remember how we talked about pennies reflecting historical events?
Yeah.
Well, during World War II, copper was in high demand. They needed it for the war effort.
Right.
So the U.S. Mint made the decision to switch to steel pennies.
To faith copper.
Exactly. It was only for a few years, but still, it was a big deal.
So this 1944 steel cent is like a piece of wartime history.
It is. And
Yeah.
the one on our list, it's believed to be an accident.
An accident.
Yeah. They think some leftover steel blanks were used even after the mint switched back to copper. It's incredibly rare.
How rare?
Only about 25 to 30 are known to exist.
Wow. So what's the value on that?
An MS64 graded one sold for $180,000 in 2021.
I can't believe it. A happy little accident created a super valuable coin.
Ah,
But if it was an accident, does that mean there are fakes out there?
good question. And unfortunately, yes, there are counterfeit 1944 steel cents out there. They're often made by coating copper pennies with zinc to make them look like steel.
Wow. People will try anything.
It's amazing, isn't it? These pennies have been through so much.
Okay, we're down to the last penny on this list. What's the grand finale?
This one's the holy grail for wheat penny collectors.
Uh-huh.
The 1943 bronze cent.
Wait, so we have Steel pennies in 1944 and then bronze in 1943. I'm confused.
Remember how the U.S. Mint switched to steel pennies during the war?
Yeah.
Well, a few bronze planchettes.
What are those?
Those are the blank metal discs that they strike the coins from.
Okay.
A few of those bronze planchettes somehow slipped through and were struck with the 1943 dies.
Ah, so these bronze pennies were another accident?
They were, and they're incredibly rare and incredibly valuable.
How valuable are we talking?
An MS-62BN graded 1943 bronze cent sold for $372,000 in 2021.
You've got to be kidding me. $372,000?
Yep, for 1 penny.
All right, time to check the couch cushions. I'm guessing with that kind of value, there are a lot of fakes out there.
You are absolutely right. There are tons of fake 1943 bronze cents in circulation. But there's an easy way to spot a fake. All you need is a magnet.
A magnet.
If the penny sticks to the magnet, it's a fake. Real 1943 bronze cents aren't magnetic.
That's a good tip. This has been an incredible journey. I never knew so much could be packed into these tiny coins.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Each penny is like a little window into the past.
It really is.
And, we've only scratched the surface here. There's a whole universe of fascinating pennies out there, each with its own story to tell.
I'm definitely ready to dive deeper. I have a feeling we'll uncover even more surprising discoveries as we go.
I think so, too. There's always something new to learn in the world of numismatics.
We've been on quite a journey through the world of valuable wheat pennies.
It has been fascinating, hasn't it?
Uncovering these stories of, rarity, minting errors, and even wartime shortages. It's amazing how much history can be packed into these what seem like ordinary coins.
It's really incredible. Each penny is like almost a tiny window into the past.
Right.
Not just about like economic trends, but about, the human stories behind how these pennies were made.
Before the break, we were talking about the 1943 bronze cent.
Oh, yeah.
A real holy grail for collectors.
Absolutely.
It's incredible to think that while the nation was, focused on the war effort,
right,
a few of those bronze planchettes managed to slip through.
And now they're worth a fortune.
Creating this, numismatic legend.
I know, it's amazing. Those bronze pennies from 1943.
Yeah.
They're like a real testament to, the unexpected twists and turns that can happen in history.
Right.
Even on a really small scale.
Makes you wonder what other treasures are out there just waiting to be discovered.
I know, right?
Speaking of hidden treasures,
yeah,
we've been mainly focused on this top 10 list of the most valuable wheat pennies. But let's zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
What happened to the wheat penny design?
Well,
why did it disappear from circulation?
Like all good things, it eventually came to an end.
Right.
It was introduced in 1909, to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. Had a good run, almost 50 years.
Yeah.
But in 1959, it was replaced with the Lincoln Memorial design.
The Lincoln Memorial design.
Which we still use today.
Ah, the one with Lincoln Memorial on the back.
Right.
It's interesting to think about how these design changes, mark different eras. But I have to ask.
Yeah.
Does the Lincoln Memorial penny, does that have its own,
Oh, absolutely.
rare and valuable varieties?
Yeah, the Lincoln Memorial penny series.
Okay.
It has its own share of fascinating stories.
Yeah.
Minting errors, valuable finds, all that.
That's a deep dive for another day.
Definitely.
I'm adding that to the list.
Okay.
But for now, let's stick with our wheat pennies.
All right.
What advice would you give to our listeners who, think they might have stumbled upon one of these valuable coins? What should they look for?
Well, condition is key.
Oh.
A heavily circulated, worn-down penny, it's not going to be worth nearly as much as one that's been, well-preserved.
So those shiny, reddish pennies we talked about.
Right.
Those are the
ones that tend to hold the most value.
Red is good, wear and tear is bad.
You got it.
Got it.
Got it.
What else?
Yeah.
Pay attention to those mint marks.
Okay.
We've seen pennies from certain mints, like San Francisco with the S mint mark, can be way more rare and valuable than others.
Okay.
So knowing the date and the mint mark, that's essential.
Hate mint mark.
Yeah.
It's a real treasure hunt.
It really is.
But, if you think you've found something special, it's always a good idea to get it authenticated by a reputable coin dealer.
Right.
Or a grading service.
Yeah.
They can, assess the condition, verify its authenticity, and give you an accurate idea of its value.
Authentication.
Yeah.
Got it. Are there any red flags, though,
Oh, yeah.
that our listeners should be aware of?
Definitely.
Anything that might indicate a fake?
A few things. Beware of pennies that are like unusually shiny or have a weird color. Some counterfeiters, they'll try to enhance the appearance of their fakes to make them look more valuable.
Yeah. So if it looks too good to be true,
Right.
probably is.
That's good advice for pretty much anything in life.
What else?
Pay close attention to the details of the design.
Okay.
Counterfeiters, they often make mistakes in like the lettering, the spacing of elements, or, the overall sharpness of the image. A real penny is going to have crisp, well-defined details.
They can get the design close.
Yeah.
But those finer details give it away.
Exactly.
What about deals that sound too good to be true?
Oh, absolutely. If someone's offering to sell you a rare penny for a fraction of its market value, it's almost certainly a scam.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
In this situation.
Do your research, familiarize yourself with what genuine coins look like, and only deal with reputable sources.
You mentioned coin grading earlier.
Oh, yeah.
You've mentioned a few pennies that were graded MS66 plus RD.
Right.
Can you explain what that means and how it impacts the value? Breaking it down.
So MS stands for mint state, which means the coin is uncirculated and in excellent condition.
Okay.
The number after MS, that indicates the coin's grade on a scale of 1 to 70.
Okay.
70 being perfect.
So the higher the number,
the better the condition.
Got it.
So an MS66 plus RD penny, that's an exceptionally good condition, like close to perfect.
Wow.
RD stands for red.
Right.
Meaning it's retained its original copper color.
So red is good.
Red is good.
In this case.
Red pennies are generally more desirable and valuable than ones that have, tarnished or darkened over time.
Makes sense.
The grading system, it can seem complicated at first.
Yeah.
But once you get the basics, it's really interesting to see how even small differences in condition can drastically affect a coin's value.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I've learned so much about wheat pennies.
Glad to hear it.
In such a short amount of time.
It's a fascinating subject.
It's amazing how much history and intrigue can be found in something as small as a penny.
You know what's even more remarkable?
What's that?
We've only just begun to explore the fascinating world of wheat pennies.
Really?
There are tons of varieties out there, each with its own unique story.
Well, I'm ready to dive deeper.
All right, let's do it.
I have a feeling we're going to uncover even more surprising discoveries as we go.
I agree. There's always more to learn and discover in the world of numismatics.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of valuable wheat pennies.
It's been an eye-opening journey for me, too.
I never realized how much history and intrigue could be packed into something as small as, well, a penny.
It really is amazing, isn't it, how these what seem like insignificant coins can hold so much value.
All right.
Both, monetary and historical.
Speaking of history, we've talked about specific pennies and their unique stories. But let's step back for a second and look at the bigger picture.
What I find really fascinating is how these pennies, they actually reflect broader historical trends.
Right.
Like, take the 1943 bronze cent and the 1944 steel cent, for example.
Right, those are great examples.
There's direct products of World War II and the wartime shortages that, gripped the nations.
They're true. They're not just coins. They're artifacts.
Exactly.
They tell stories about, well, wartime production, economic constraints, and even, the human element of error that led to those rare bronze pennies being struck in 1943.
Precisely. And beyond, their historical significance, these coins, they also have a certain, allure for collectors.
Yeah.
It's the thrill of the hunt.
Right.
The excitement of discovery.
The potential for uncovering, like, a hidden treasure.
Exactly. It's all part of the appeal.
I can definitely see that.
It's like a, real-life treasure hunt. Only the treasure is hiding in plain sight.
Right. You might even have one of these valuable pennies tucked away in your own home.
You never know.
I know I'll be checking my change jar a lot more carefully. From now on.
That's the beauty of, numismatics. The study of coins and currency.
It's true. You never know what you might find when you really start looking.
Exactly.
Who knows, maybe one of our listeners will strike it rich.
Maybe.
By finding, a hidden treasure in their own pocket change.
It's possible.
It could happen.
But even if you don't, stumble upon a fortune, the knowledge that you've gained about these historical coins, that's valuable in its own right.
Absolutely.
Like, even if a wheat penny isn't worth thousands of dollars,
right.
it's still, a little piece of history that we can hold in our hands.
Right.
It's a, tangible connection to the past.
Well said. Well said.
So as we wrap up our deep dive here into the world of valuable wheat pennies, I want to leave our listeners with this thought.
Okay.
Next time you come across a penny, any penny, take a moment to really look at it. Consider its age, its journey, and the stories that it could tell.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
I think so too.
And who knows, you might just have a hidden treasure in your pocket.
Happy hunting, everyone!
Happy hunting! That's all for today's deep dive.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.
Until then,
keep exploring, keep learning,
keep searching,
and keep an eye out for those hidden treasures.